Hi, welcome back to my channel. I sometimes walk on my nearest beach. It's not far from my house and can walk there. Each time I went there, I was discouraged to go there again. Because of the garbage, plastic bottles, plastic bags. We care our beach, but Bula doesn't care because it's not their beach. Anyway, today's podcast is about ocean health. Stay tuned and hey, don't throw rubbish.
Welcome to today's deep dive, where we'll be exploring the health of our oceans, and you know what it means for us.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about some pretty crucial challenges facing our oceans, things like ocean acidification, overfishing, and then we're going to zoom out a little bit and look at how all of this is impacting coastal communities and economies.
We've got a ton of data and real-world examples to really illustrate just how interconnected our lives are with the ocean. Even if we live miles from the coast.
Right. It's so easy for us to see the ocean as this vast, separate entity, but it's really not. It's woven into everything we do.
Definitely. Okay, let's start with something that sounds kind of technical.
Yeah.
Ocean acidification. You might be thinking, is the ocean turning into battery acid? Not quite.
No.
But the pH is dropping, and that's a big deal.
Yeah, since the Industrial Revolution, the ocean's pH has actually decreased by 0.1, which translates to about a 30% increase in acidity.
Wow, a 30% increase, that's huge. So what does that actually mean for all the creatures living in the ocean?
Well, a lot of marine organisms, things like corals and oysters and even those tiny plankton we barely see, they rely on calcium carbonate to build their shells and skeletons.
Oh, so it's like their building blocks are dissolving around them.
Exactly. Acidified water can actually dissolve those existing shells and skeletons,
Wow.
making it harder for these creatures to survive.
That's a grim picture. And I'm guessing this doesn't just impact those specific species. What about the rest of the ecosystem?
You're right. It's not just an isolated problem. These tiny calcifying organisms, they're really the foundation of the entire marine food web. If their numbers decline, well, it creates a ripple effect. Fish that rely on them for food are going to struggle. And then, of course, those fish are food for larger animals, including us. Think about paying, double for your fish and chips because cod is now scarce.
Oh, wow.
That's the kind of impact we're talking about.
Wow. So this isn't just this abstract environmental problem. It's hitting our wallets and our dinner plates.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not just about food. What about those amazing coral reefs we see in documentaries?
Yeah, coral reefs are especially vulnerable to ocean acidification. They're not just these beautiful underwater landscapes. They provide vital habitat for so many species. They protect our coastlines from storms. They support tourism industries.
So if we lose those coral reefs, we're losing so much more than a pretty picture.
Exactly. Think about all those vibrant economies that depend on coral reefs for tourism, for fishing. Ocean acidification threatens livelihoods.
Wow.
And in some cases, entire ways of life.
Okay, so ocean acidification is a major threat. But there's another big challenge facing our oceans. Overfishing.
Right. Overfishing is basically taking fish out of the ocean faster than they can reproduce. It's like withdrawing money from your savings account constantly without making any deposit.
Yeah.
Eventually, you're going to run out.
You're going to be broke.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's not just about the quantity of fish that we're taking, it's also about the methods that we're using to catch them. Some fishing practices are so destructive.
Yeah, think about bottom trawling, where you have this massive net just dragged across the seafloor, scooping up everything in its path.
Oh, wow.
It's like dragging a bulldozer through a delicate garden. Destroys habitats, catches tons of unintended creatures, what we call bycatch.
So we're not only depleting the fish stocks, but we're also damaging the ecosystems they depend on.
Right. It's a double whammy.
It's a double whammy, yeah.
Right.
But there has to be a better way, right?
Yeah.
What are some solutions?
Absolutely. There are ways to fish more sustainably, more responsibly. One great example is marine protected areas, what we call MPAs. These are areas where fishing is restricted or even banned altogether.
Right.
This allows fish stocks to recover, ecosystems can thrive.
I remember hearing about the cod fishing bans in New England. It was really tough for fishing communities initially, but the cod population rebounded.
Right.
It shows that it can actually work.
Yeah, those cod populations are a beacon of hope. They show us that with careful management, a commitment to sustainability, recovery is possible.
That's great.
Yeah.
MPAs are one solution. But sustainable fishing practices in general are crucial. So it's about finding a way to fish smarter, not harder. But how do we ensure that that happens on a global scale?
That's a great question, and it actually leads us to our next topic, the impact of all this on coastal communities and economies. Imagine living in a place where the ocean isn't just a nice view, it's your lifeline. It's your income, your food source, maybe even your cultural traditions are all tied to the ocean.
Yeah, it's like the ocean is in their DNA. It's part of their identity.
Exactly. Now imagine that lifeline starting to fray. Overfishing, habitat destruction, climate change. That's the reality for a lot of coastal communities.
It's a good reminder that environmental issues are also very much social justice issues. We can't talk about protecting the ocean without talking about protecting the people who depend on it.
Absolutely. And that means empowering those communities to be stewards of the marine environment, giving them a voice in shaping sustainable solutions that work for them and the ocean. It's about finding that balance between, economic growth, environmental protection, and social equity.
So it's not just about scientists and policymakers coming up with solutions. It's about working with those coastal communities to really create a sustainable future for everyone. We've covered a lot of ground already. But I'm curious to dive a little deeper into the human side of all of this. How are communities experiencing these challenges, and what are they doing to adapt and create a better future for themselves and for the ocean? Let's dive into that in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, so we've talked about these big, challenges, right, facing the ocean, but I'm so curious to hear, how real people are experiencing these issues, what's happening on the ground, so to speak. Well, let's think about a small fishing village, maybe in Indonesia. For generations, their lives have completely revolved around the ocean, right? It's their food, it's their livelihood, their cultural identity. But in recent years, they've seen their fish stocks decline dramatically because of overfishing and these destructive practices, things like blast fishing.
Blast fishing.
Yeah. They use explosives to stun or kill fish, but it damages the surrounding coral reef.
Oh, wow. That's devastating. So what happens to a community when their main source of income and food starts to, disappear?
It creates this ripple effect through the entire community. Fishermen are struggling to make ends meet, families are facing food insecurity, the local economy suffers, and it can lead to social unrest, even migration, and increased poverty. And it's not just in Indonesia. We see this happening in coastal communities all over the world.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking to think about the human cost of these environmental challenges. But are these communities just giving up? Or are they finding ways to adapt and fight back?
There's remarkable resilience in these communities. A lot of them are turning to more sustainable fishing practices, using selective fishing gear to minimize bycatch, avoid damaging the seabed. They're also working to restore these damaged ecosystems, things like planting mangroves to create nurseries for fish, protect the coastline from erosion.
So it's about empowering those communities to really become stewards of their own resources.
Exactly. There's a growing movement towards community-based conservation. Local people are getting actively involved in managing and protecting their marine environment. They have that traditional knowledge, they have the deep connection to the ocean, so they're often in the best position to find solutions that work for their context.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. It's not about imposing solutions from outside. It's about working with them to come up with these approaches that are sustainable for everybody and everything.
Right, and it's not just about fishing. A lot of these coastal communities are diversifying their income. Maybe they're embracing ecotourism. Instead of just relying on fishing, they're offering guided tours, snorkeling trips, other activities, letting visitors experience the ocean, but in a way that respects its fragility.
That's so cool. So they're creating alternative income streams and raising awareness about conservation, turning a challenge into an opportunity.
Exactly. And it's not just happening in these small villages. Larger coastal cities are also starting to realize that their future is linked to the health of the ocean.
So it's not just an environmental issue, it's economic and social.
Yeah, exactly. Think about a city like Miami, Florida.
Right.
Incredibly vulnerable to sea level rise, coastal erosion. They're already seeing more frequent and intense flooding. It damages infrastructure, disrupts businesses, and threatens those property values.
It's almost like the ocean is literally encroaching on their way of life.
It is, and it's costing them money. Miami's investing billions of dollars in things like seawalls, pumps, and other infrastructure to try to adapt. And they're also working to restore those coastal ecosystems, things like mangrove forests, which can help act as natural buffers against those storms and erosion.
It sounds like they're taking this threat seriously.
They have to. Their economic future, their very existence depends on it. And Miami is not alone. Coastal cities all around the world are grappling with this.
So it's not just about protecting fish and coral reefs. It's about protecting people's homes and businesses and entire cities.
That's right. These impacts are converging, climate change, ocean acidification, overfishing. It's forcing us to rethink our relationship with the ocean.
It's a wake-up call. We can't keep treating the ocean like an inexhaustible resource. We need to find ways to live in harmony with it, to protect it, to ensure that it's going to be around for future generations. But what does that actually look like in practice? What can we as individuals do to be part of the solution? That's what we'll be exploring in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay, so we've talked about these big problems and we've seen how they're playing out in real communities, but it's so easy to feel overwhelmed by all of this. Like, what can we as individuals really do to make a difference?
It's true. The challenges are huge, but that doesn't mean that our actions are insignificant. Every choice we make, every action we take has a ripple effect.
So where do we even begin? What are some concrete steps people can take?
One of the most impactful things you can do is be a conscious consumer. Think about the seafood you eat. Look for sustainably sourced options. Check for certifications like the Marine Stewardship Council label. And ask questions, at your local fish market or restaurant. Oh, so we can actually vote with our wallets and support businesses that are doing things the right way.
Exactly. And it goes beyond seafood, Reduce your plastic consumption. Choose reusable bags, water bottles, containers. Every piece of plastic that you keep out of the landfill is one less piece that could end up polluting the ocean.
Yeah, that's something that everyone can do no matter where they live.
Absolutely. And don't underestimate the power of your voice. Support policies that promote ocean conservation, hold businesses accountable for their environmental practices, and contact your elected officials. Advocate for change.
So we can be citizen activists, raising awareness and pushing for solutions.
Exactly. Get involved.
Yeah.
Participate in a local beach cleanup. Volunteer with an organization that's working to protect marine ecosystems. Every action, no matter how small it seems, contributes to a healthier ocean.
It's about creating a collective wave of change.
I like that. And remember, education is key. The more we understand about the ocean, the challenges it faces, the more equipped we are to make informed choices and inspire others to take action.
So we can all be ocean ambassadors, spreading the word and sharing our passion for protecting this planet.
That's the spirit. The ocean connects us all. It gives us food, oxygen, recreation, inspiration. It regulates our climate. It supports a web of life. Protecting the ocean isn't just about saving fish and coral reefs. It's about safeguarding our own future.
Yeah. As we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left with a sense of urgency, but also hope. The challenges are real, but so is our capacity for change. It's time to stop seeing ourselves as separate from the ocean and start seeing ourselves as a part of it. Our actions on land have a direct impact on the health of the ocean, and the health of the ocean has a direct impact on us.
Couldn't agree more. We need to shift from this mindset of exploitation to a mindset of stewardship. The ocean is not ours to plunder, it's ours to protect.
So let's all do our part, big or small, to make sure that future generations can experience the wonder and beauty of a healthy ocean. Our future depends on it. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.